like to start our afternoon session now. I want to thank Pratt Whitney Canada as a diamond sponsor for this event. Without you, this event would not occur. We're very grateful. And I'd now like to welcome James Tempel of Pratt Whitney Canada to the stage to say a few words. Thank you, James, for the strong support for this event and for being here today.
We need to look. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you as well, Faye, for letting us be here and participating and taking a little bit of the stage. I promise I will not talk about pilot shortage. Okay? Not to say it's not a critical issue, just as an engine maker, there's a limited things I can help you with there. Okay, so look, Pratt Canada is we're based in Montreal. We're a subsidiary of Pratt Whitney, which is Hartford-based. So the company itself covers a wide range of different products for regional aviation. If you could go to the next slide, please. We have a great position on regional turboprops. We've been making them for over 40 years. Still many of them in service with a lot of airlines around the world. So we've got about 7,000 engines out there. You can go to the next one as well, please. So 7,000 engines, 150 countries, for all the reasons that regional aviation is key. Linking communities, creating business, bringing families together, areas in the world where not able to seek to do that. And we continue to be very optimistic about the market. Both domestically and internationally, seeing continued growth. I'd say when we look at flying versus pre-COVID levels, certainly US, Europe even almost above pre-COVID levels. Asia still lagging behind, but I think that is eventually picking up. So we're continuing to invest in that market. Then, as I mentioned, our parent company has the geared turbofan. So that's a product that's on the Airbus A320, Neo 321, the A220, as well as the Embraer E2-190. So besides our regional portfolio of turboprops, we're quite active on the larger jets as well. Next slide, please. So show you a little bit about what Pratt Canada is like. We have developed and certified 100 engines in the last 25 years, and we're keeping up that average of about 4 engines per year this year. It's across all different markets. So we serve business aviation with BizNets, general aviation, military, agricultural, helicopters, a lot of air medical and oil and gas. So great markets, and investing in engines across the platforms really helps us out in terms of diversity and so on of the product line. You think about the post-COVID era. Well, in COVID, we were as busy as possible trying to help medical evacuation, getting supplies, cargo, different aspects with our engines. So proud to have that diversity there. Next slide, please. So this year, we're quite happy to be able to have certified PW127 XT series. It's a new regional turboprop engine building on the success we've had with the 127. It's I'd say there's a big part of the engine that is completely new, and we focused on sustainability and operating costs, which was the biggest pull from our airline community. So new designs, new materials. We've got ceramics. Different aspects of heat retention. And so we ended up with a 40% increase of time on wing, so a lot less removals for the engine, which translates to 20% better engine operating cost. And on top of that, 3 to 4% better fuel burn. So having certified this during COVID was quite a difficult challenge, but managed to do it and continue investing in that market. We're seeing great success and feedback from our customer base, and it'll be going into service on an ATR 72 later this year. And we're also pleased that we were selected by Deutsche Aircraft, that's investing in a 40 or 50 seat regional turboprop as well, and they've selected a 127 XT to power their aircraft. Next slide, please. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about sustainability and technology advancement, maybe some next generation technology. So I'll put it into 4 different pillars that we believe in at Pratt Canada. So you've got to have the product. So that brings you the technology innovation. And I'll talk about some of the specifics there, whether it be electrification, hybrid electric, different fuel types, or so on. But there's some other 3 key things that we can't forget that needs to be core to what we do as we support customers. And that's delivering on the promise of what it is that the engine is supposed to have, right? The right power when you need it. We don't talk about reliability and durability because it's a given. If you're not at 99+% dispatch reliability, it just doesn't even cut it. It's the ante to get in the door, right? So we focus a lot on reliability, durability, and without fail, 2 years ago we would have been talking all about survival of industry and how do we make money, how do we bring customers back. So operating cost is not something that we can easily forget. And we do develop products, partly for sustainability, partly for advancement, but you always have to remember that its sustainability over a longer term also means that it has to be able to have at a reasonable price. Okay. Next slide, please. So when we talk about sustainable aviation, I want to share with you a little bit of that technology roadmap. It's a stool of 3 pillars, right? We've got that technology element, which I'll talk about. There's a cleaner element of fuel, which is equally important and yet follows a totally different pathway. And then there's the element of how we produce, how we service, how we maintain the aircraft engines and so on. I won't have a chance to talk about the third one, but making sure that we have greener facilities is also an important part of sustainability. Next slide, please. So people ask, say, okay, so where's Pratt Canada's head on next engine development? What does that look like? So a couple of things, key elements to keep in mind for sustainability. I would say investing in turbine engine thermal efficiency never goes out of style. You can always make an engine better. You can always improve not just its fuel burn, but its cost, its longevity, and different efficiencies of pressure and performance. So we want to continue to drive that and get up to a 30-40% improvement as we get to cruise. To do that, we look at different elements like electric, like battery, and in that, there's the whole discussion about power density. What can you get out of a certain battery, and what's its density for power and longevity? And it's the same for fuels and fuel cells. Multi-fuel is one that we hear a lot these days. You say, Pratt, you've got to come up with an engine that can burn the traditional kerosene, your Jet A, but I want to think in the future, I want to think about hydrogen, and I've got sustainable aviation fuel that's starting to be available. How do you get that to be at a higher percentage than you have today? So all key elements that we're looking for as we continue to design new products. And then one that doesn't get talked a lot about is low NOx emission. This is essentially the emitting of nitrous oxide at altitude, which also can have a negative environmental impact. So we look at the fundamentals on our side. You still have to have that product reliability. You can develop the technology, and similar to what Mark presented from Embraer, we look at it over a long term, fairly conservatively, seeing when we think those technologies will become ready for industrialization. But there's other things that we need to do as an industry, and that Pratt plays a part of influencing things. And a lot of that is industry groups that look at things like fuel commonality, that look at government incentives, disincentives for particular investments. Global infrastructure is a big one. Certainly we're not going to have a different engine that operates in the US as you would have in Europe, as you may have in Indonesia, or so on. They all have to be able to handle the same elements of fuel. And then there's challenges of just technology. Battery technology and its evolution, will be probably as far from today in 5 years as it was 5 years ago. Okay. For us, the element of, you hear about greenwashing, which is making something look good for sustainability reasons, but when you peel the onion behind, it's not really there. And so the element of, producing, having, if you're going to have sustainable aviation fuel, it's got to be cleaner and greener from production right up to usage. And those are things that, industry groups need to continue to look at. And I will say, things like electrification, hybrid electric, it's coming to a new area for certification. I will tell you for sure, aircraft engine certification is more complicated rather than getting simpler, and for good reasons. And I think this goes into an area where there's newer things to be discussed. So on the next slide, I want to share with you a little bit about some of the investments we've made. We started a project in 2021 with the Canadian government and some key suppliers on a hybrid electric, essentially a demonstration program. So the idea we had around that was we said, well, our goal is to have a thermal engine matched with an electric engine, as an electric motor and a battery, but with one common control, so that the pilot can ask for power, and that power will come from the software as determined which engine, whether it be electric or turbine generated. And so for us, the key is to be able to prove out that technology. So quite a few lessons learned that we'll have over the next couple of years. But we see a tremendous opportunity here to take a thermal engine and essentially augment its capability using battery power. So we've chosen a few key suppliers along with the partners that we have. So we have the H55, who is supplying the battery and battery system with us. We have our sister company in Collins, who I know are here today as well, who will be providing the e-motor, as well as working with us on the control for the engine, and some technical support and engineering support from de Havilland, also being a Canadian company. So we're looking right now at a demo program that uses a Dash 8 100 aircraft, 30 seats. But as you'll see in the next slide, we believe there's quite an opportunity to be able to scale that technology either upwards or downwards. So just taking a look, I'll go to the left side. You hear about all electric, different things. Absolutely, as you get a smaller aircraft or go short distance, we think that's a possibility. Look, right now we're on a 30-seat aircraft size where we believe the electrification can be about 50% of the power, so shared between the thermal engine and the e-motor. So obviously you can scale that in itself, just like you can with any hybrid vehicle, where you can go more fuel or less fuel, and the full electrification is essentially just removing that engine. As you go up, it becomes more about an augmentation, which in itself has a tremendous opportunity for new design. So I'll give you an example. On an engine design, you typically look at the performance of the aircraft, and you will size the engine and its fuel and all the things that come with it, where you're at your takeoff and your climb. So if you decide, well, I'm going to use that battery to augment the power at the time I need it the most, all of a sudden you can decide to design an engine that's smaller, which gives you less weight, more room for those batteries, more weight for the batteries, and as well you're looking at improved fuel burn, less cost, and so on. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity for us to be able to do that. So switching gears a little bit, on the next slide, talk a little bit about cleaner fuel. So SAF. So all of our engines right now, in their engine manuals and the aircraft manuals, can use a blend up to 50% sustainable aviation fuel. Now, if you ask me, do a lot of people use it? You're seeing a fair amount of single digit. I haven't seen many get to 50%. I think it's not a question of capability, it's a question of availability, cost. And I think, US may be easier, but other parts of the world where you're flying from one country to another, you need to have a common element of what that fuel is. So in there, the big push from the different committees is to have a drop-in fuel where essentially you're synthetic, sustainable, but with almost all the same characteristics that you have of Jet A. We continue to look at what a non-drop-in might be and any of the impacts it might have on either engine performance or longevity, and so on. A lot of things that we're working on there. But really, to me, the fuel production, the commonality, the distribution is going to be a key element in that. So we participate in quite a few committees. CAFE is one of the big ones in North America. ASTM that looks at fuel standards and so on, where really as soon as that the industry can define what that standard is for SAF, it'll essentially clear things for taking on the next challenges. So that infrastructure for delivery, I think, is a key one that needs to happen. And you see in Europe, there's a lot of discussions about, I'll call it incentives, or on the other side, it's disincentives to use sustainable fuel. And I think as it becomes more available and standard, then I think you're going to see the lawmakers start to really look at opportunities there. So look, on the bottom of the screen, you're going to see two key things that we did this year in terms of achievements. So we tested our gear turbofan, did ground runs with 100% SAF, which was great. We also, on an ATR 72 owned by Brathens, the Swedish airline, we flew both engines 100%, a few hour-and-a-half flights on 100% SAF that was done by fuel company Neste. So, they say that's the first commercial airline flight that was done with 100% SAF. So groundbreaking. We're looking at the data now to see if, how the engine performed, what things well, and everything looks quite good. So we're pleased to have that. Next slide, please. So, James, well, when's all this going to be available? All right. Tough question to answer. I'll, give it a shot on what we believe at Pratt Whitney, and similar to what Embraer showed. Again, we continue to invest in engines and engine performance. As a company, Pratt Canada, we invest about $400 million per year on research and development of new engines, improving the ones that we have. And so that we'll continue to do. I mentioned the hybrid electric demo. So that demo will go into ground test by the end of this year. And we'll continue to work on that as we take the technology readiness level to the point that we feel that it'll needs aircraft integration, and we'll look at putting it on some new platforms. We continue to talk to all of the aircraft manufacturers about what's next, and that's all good. On the SAF use, we can see the momentum, so I think that's going to pick up quite quickly, and we're excited about that, and in itself, from a sustainability point of view, can make a tremendous difference to what you have. I didn't talk much about hydrogen. I think it's essentially the ultimate of fuel, right? There's no carbon footprint whatsoever. I would say from an engine maker, burning gaseous hydrogen, not the issue, right? It's a gas, so on. Now, delivering it and storing it, cryogenic hydrogen minus 453 degrees Fahrenheit. Now you're talking about a distribution system, both on an aircraft and at the airports. That needs a lot of work and a lot of investment. And the good news is, the likes of Airbus, Pratt, Embraer, people are looking at it and investing in it and getting support from governments, both local, around the world, to spend some time and some resources to see what that would look like. And we think there's definitely a future in that, but probably more in the 2040 area, probably not in the next investment cycle for the aircraft. Next slide, please. So really just in summary, we continue to invest in the product. We're committed to sustainable aviation as we are to regional aviation as a whole. It's important as an industry that we bring the problems to the surface, because it's really, it becomes infrastructure integration. There is nobody that can wave a magic wand and solve for the silver bullet tomorrow on their own. The technology advancements, though, whether it be hydrogen or electrification or so on, I think they're all complementary. Nothing says that we won't be able to have a hybrid electric fuel-burning engine that also burns hydrogen. There's nothing to say that that isn't possible out in the future. It's a question of investment, it's a question of integration, and it's a question of pull for customers. And at the end, we look at all those things as different enablers. So as our parent company, Raytheon, we launched a Raytheon Ventures, which essentially helps us invest in some of these key small entities, help them bring technology to market somewhere where we think overall helps the system to be an enabler for future technologies and emerging technologies. And lastly, what we say is it's still operating costs, still crucial, and in that, we focus on mission energy and mission energy by passenger. Because really, bringing something to market, it's got to come to market, and it's going to have to be an aircraft that is available and supportable for 20, 25 years, like the equipment that we all, luckily get to fly on today. So, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, James, for those remarks and for your support. And it's nice to have some technology and future tech to look forward to.